Welcome back. As we enter this new week, we begin our new theme of urban exploration. Tonight's story is a spine-tingling journey into the unknown as we follow a homeless man who stumbles upon an abandoned factory in Alaska, only to discover the terrifying secret lurking within. If you love tales of suspense and horror, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all our upcoming stories. And let me know what themes you'd like to explore with me in the comments below. Thank you. Jared had always lived life on the edge. From petty theft to running errands for local dealers, he did whatever it took to survive the harsh streets of Anchorage, Alaska. The biting cold and endless nights were his constant companions, but it was the desperation for a quick escape from reality that led him down a path he never expected. On a frigid December night, Jared found himself entangled in a drug deal that went terribly wrong. What was supposed to be a simple exchange turned into a chaotic shootout. The air was filled with the deafening sounds of gunfire, and Jared scrambled for cover. He watched in horror as his partner fell to the ground, blood seeping into the snow. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Jared bolted into the dense woods, leaving the scene behind. The cold bit at his skin as he ran through the forest, his breath visible in the frosty air. Twisting through the underbush, he stumbled upon a path he had never seen before. The tall, skeletal trees gave way to a clearing, and there, hidden among the shadows, was an old, abandoned factory. It loomed ominously against the dark sky, its windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti. Desperate for shelter and a place to hide, Jared made his way to the factory's entrance. The heavy metal door creaked open with a groan, and he slipped inside, his heart pounding in his chest. The interior was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the broken windows, casting eerie shadows on the cracked concrete floor. The factory had an oppressive silence, a stark contrast to the chaos he had just escaped. Jared navigated the labyrinthian hallways, his steps echoing through the cavernous space. Rusty machinery and abandoned equipment littered the floors, remnants of a bygone era. As he ventured deeply into the factory, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and he quickened his pace, driven by an inexplicable sense of urgency. In the heart of the factory, Jared found a staircase leading down into the bowels of the building. He hesitated for a moment, but the need for safety pushed him forward. Descending the steps, he felt the temperature drop even further, and the air grew thick with unsettling energy. The basement was a maze of narrow corridors and storage rooms, each more foreboding than the last. As he explored the lower levels, Jared stumbled upon a room that seemed different from the rest. The door was reinforced with steel, and strange symbols were etched into the frame. Curiosity piqued, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dark, with only a faint flickering light casting an eerie glow. In the center of the room stood a large, rusted cage, its bars twisted and bent as if something had tried to escape. Jared approached the cage cautiously, peering inside. His breath caught in his throat as he saw what lay within. A figure, gaunt and twisted, with eyes that glowed with an otherworldly light, stared right back at him. The creature's skin was stretched tight over its bones, and its elongated limbs ended in sharp claws. The creature let out a low, guttural growl, and Jared stumbled back, terror gripping his heart. As a young man in Alaska, he often heard tales of the Wendigo, a creature of legend said to roam the wilderness, preying on the lost and desperate. But he had never believed those stories until now. The realization that he was trapped in the same building as this monstrous entity sent a wave of panic through his spine. He turned and fled the room, the creature's growls echoing in his ears. Jared navigated the maze-like corridors, desperately searching for a way out. The factory seemed to come alive, the walls closing in around him, as if trying to trap him within its depths. You could hear the creature's footsteps behind him, growing louder and closer with each passing moment. The air was thick, with the stench of decay and fear, and Jared's mind raced with thoughts of escape. Finally, he found a narrow staircase leading back to the main floor of the factory. Clambering up the steps, he could feel the creature's presence right behind him. As he reached the top, he slammed the door shut and barricaded it with a heavy piece of machinery. His breath came in ragged gasps as he leaned against the wall, trying to compose himself. The factory's oppressive silence was broken by the sound of the creature's claws scratching at the door. Jared knew he had to keep moving, but his legs felt like lead. Pushing himself forward, he stumbled through the hallways searching for an exit. The sense of dread that had been gnawing at him since he entered the factory now threatened to overwhelm him. In a moment of clarity, Jared remembered the stories he had heard about the Wendigo, how it was said to be relentless in its pursuit of its prey, driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. He realized that simply escaping the factory might not be enough. He needed to find a way to stop the creature, or risk being hunted down wherever he went. Desperation fueled his actions as he scoured the factory for anything that could be used as a weapon. He found an old metal pipe and gripped it tightly, his knuckles white with fear. The creature's growls grew louder, and he knew it was only a matter of time before it broke through the barricade. Jared's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. He needed to lure the creature into a trap, but the thought of facing it head-on filled him with absolute dread. He steeled himself, knowing that his survival depended on his courage and resourcefulness. He made his way to the factory's furnace room, an idea forming in his mind. If he could trap the creature inside and ignite the furnace, he might be able to destroy it. room was filled with old, rusted equipment and piles of debris. He set to work, creating a makeshift barricade at the entrance and positioning himself near the furnace's controls. The sound of the creature's claws on the concrete floor grew closer, and Jared's heart could be heard pounding out of his chest. He tightened his grip on the metal pipe, ready to strike. As the creature rounded the corner and lunged at him, he swung with all his might, landing a blow right on its head. The creature let out a roar of pain, but it only seemed to anger it further. Jared retreated, leading the creature deeper into the furnace room. He dodged its attacks, narrowly avoiding its razor-sharp claws. With each step, he drew the creature closer to the furnace, his plan coming together. When he was within reach of the controls, he slammed the door shut and activated the furnace, the flames roaring to life. The creature let out a deafening scream as the flames engulfed it. Jared watched in horror and relief as the Wendigo thrashed and writhed in the inferno, its flesh burning away. The creature's cries echoed through the factory, a chilling reminder of the danger he had faced. As the flames died down and the creature's remains turned to ash, Jared collapsed to the floor, exhaustion overtaking him. He had faced his worst nightmare and survived, but the experience had left him scared and shaken. The factory, once a place of refuge, had become a tomb for the monster that had haunted its depths. Just as Jared began to catch his breath, a shot rang out. It echoed through the factory's decaying walls. He staggered, a burning pain spreading through his chest, and turned to see the shadowy figures of the drug dealers he had escaped earlier. Drawn by the noise, they had tracked him down and now stood with grim satisfaction etched on their faces. Jared's last vision was of the Wendigo emerging from the shadows as the drug dealers, oblivious to the true horror they had unleashed, began their cold retreat. As Jared's blood poured out onto the concrete, Jared sat up. The pain began to lessen until, suddenly, the pain was gone. And all that remained was an insatiable hunger.